Hello and welcome to the Leathercraft Masterclass, and in this video I'm going to be discussing some of the design elements and construction of the Turenne luxury handbag. Now, the Turenne luxury handbag was a handbag video course that I produced recently which showcases the making of this particular bag. So this is a small bag made of ostrich skin with a baby calf lining, which is a much smoother, tighter grained skin, and in this particular case it is in suede. So this is a baby calf suede, so it's very, very soft, still quite durable compared to some of the other suedes that are available. So the original version of this was actually a much larger bag, so it was about twice the size of this, and the name Turenne comes from a certain place in French River, Ontario, which is close to my heart, and I made it with the autumn colors that I saw there when I visited, which was quite a few times. So we had the browns and the reds, which is something that kind of struck me. So I created a bag with those colors on the inside with the golden hardware and things like that. So this is taking that design, shrinking it down, and changing a few elements and refining a few elements into a smaller package that's going to be a lot easier to make and can be made with one ostrich skin. Now, of course, you don't have to use an ostrich skin to make this. You can make this from chrome tanned leather, you can make it from retanned leather, you can make it from vegetable tanned leather, though if you do that you won't need any reinforcements for structure on the inside. But this is a versatile bag. It has two sides and a base like most bags do. So that differs from the de Havilland travel bag, which was a baseless design. So it was seamless from one side to the other, because that's going to be very, very difficult if you are using an ostrich, of getting the consistent pearls, which are all these little dots here. These are the pearls, consistent all the way around. So it's much easier to use your patterns, and then you can select areas on the hide where you can choose your pearls. And as you can see, we have smaller and tighter pearls on the bottom, and they get larger, more spaced apart towards the top. And that's a theme that you'll also see on the gussets. Now, talking of gussets, these are quite simple to install with the right techniques, obviously, but all they are is squares. Okay, so they are complete squares. The corners have been radiused very slightly. For those who have obtained the pattern, you'll see that. But it's not an overly complex gusset to get to grips with, and it's very, very simple in its design, as is the bag. So there are a lot of design elements in its shape which give it a nice look, but its simplicity is actually quite deceptive in some ways. Now, it still has luxurious elements in it. For example, we have a hand-stitched zip puller, as you can see here, if it'll stand upright. So that's something that you'll see on luxury bags. It just adds a little element of finesse to it, so it's not just a bare metal zip puller, which doesn't look terrible. It just doesn't, it's not in keeping with something that's a little bit more luxurious. Now, one of the design elements that I came up with 2 or 3 years ago now, when I created the original Turenne luxury handbag, is a solution to a problem that I saw on luxury bags that it didn't quite have that luxurious look to it, which was when you have a top opening zip. So this is our zip flap here. You can't just stop at the end and then cut it off, because you wouldn't be able to open it properly. So you have to have an excess that keeps going so that you can then open it properly, and that way you get a wider mouth to the bag itself, so you can put more things in it, or it doesn't obstruct your ability to put things inside. But having that excess usually involves a leather tab at the end just to give the zip a more completed look, but it does leave a bare zip tape on the sides. And in some bags it looks okay, but if you're trying to make something that's a little bit finer, a little bit more luxurious, an edge binding is something that I came up with that I thought would just give it that extra finesse that the bag really deserves, because this is more of a function aspect of the bag rather than aesthetics, which a lot of the bag is based on. So this kind of has to be here. So if it has to be there, we want to add something to it that makes it a little bit more special and makes it flow a little bit more. And you can see here, if I lift up the stitching from the zip on the inside of the zip flap comes all the way up and continues along the binding. And that just kind of gives a little bit more flow to the design as well. It has been shaped so that it sits a little bit lower so it doesn't stick out. So it kind of curves inwards, which gives it a nice look to it as well. And when it's held and it comes together, the top flap doesn't touch the top of the gussets. So there's no rubbing from the zip on the inside of the gussets there. The gussets can actually come out. So if you require something that has a little bit more room inside the bag, you can pull this out and you can get wider objects, you can get more objects inside, depending on what you want to carry. Now, due to the size of it, you're not going to be carrying, your weekly shop inside of it. It's something that you would take out on an evening, for example, going out to a restaurant, going out to a bar, or wherever you want, and just taking your essentials with you and exactly what you need. So it can be had on the outside or the inside, and that's a function that I wanted to keep as well. So when we construct this, we have the lining and the gusset glued on the flat, so it can actually, it's happy going either which way, doesn't have too much of a preference. The zip or the zip puller itself is slightly larger than the width of the chain in this position, which means it's always sticking up, so you can always reach it and pull without any obstruction to the fingers, so you're not kind of like trying to pick it out between the zip as well. So a design feature there. The handles are rolled handles. These are fully leather rolled handles, so no synthetics used in there at all, so they'll mold to the hand very, very nicely as time goes by. And of course, everything on this bag is 100% completely hand stitched. That doesn't mean that you can't use a machine to stitch this up. You can absolutely use a machine. You might need several different types of machine, however, for some more challenging parts, and you're going to need something that's quite robust. But there are parts that you would struggle with if you didn't hand stitch. For example, the attachment of the handles here, that's going to necessitate hand stitching to finish off, to get that look. On the inside, there is a pocket which allows you to put your mobile phone in there, so your cell phone can go in there, and that is sized to the most common large cell phones on the market today with a slim cover over the top, so you'll be able to fit that in there without any problems. It is quite deceptive on the inside due to its wide base. As you can see, you can put quite a lot of stuff in there to take with you. Now, some of the key features on this design that make it a little bit easier, number one is a new edge finishing. So the edge on this isn't burnished, it isn't edge paint, and it isn't a turned edge. This is what I call a stabilized and polished edge. So it works very similarly to a burnish in the sense that it kind of looks natural. You can see what you're seeing here is the leather. It's not a pigment or anything that's on the surface. You are looking at the leather on the edges there. But the process that I take you through on this is more durable than a traditional burnish. And unlike edge paint, it won't peel off and it won't crack. So this is a new type of edge finishing which is adapted for a very old traditional finish and adapted in more of a modern way with modern materials. But it gives such a nice classic look to it, very natural look to it, which I absolutely love, and I think it works with the texture of the ostrich skin on here because the edges are the same color as the pearls, and also the edges bring out that shape a little bit more because you can see the edges here of the handles, you can see the lines of the bag, and what it does is it gives it a more of an enhanced silhouette, so it stands out a little bit more and is framed a little bit more, like in the same way you would use an edge creaser to kind of frame the stitches and give it that outline. It's the same thing here. Talking of stitches, I've gone for an off-white stitch on here, and I've pushed the boat out a little bit more because I've used a 2.7mm or 10 stitches per inch iron, which is very, very fine. Something you'd see on fine wallets or watch straps, for example. That's probably where you would more commonly see that stitching size. But I've done the entire bag in that just to give it that a little bit more kind of finesse and detail, because the stitches, looking at them, are extremely fine. And it just adds something that I don't think a 3mm or 3.38 would really give it. So it does, yes, definitely takes a little bit longer to do it, but I think the effect that it gives is something that you don't see very often. in a fully hand-stitched bag. Gussets wise, as I mentioned, they are square, which makes them considerably easier to install. But the unique thing about this is we're not using a reverse pricking iron for the inside of the gussets. We're using the same pricking iron on the outside and the inside, which is a standard pricking iron, or what we call an obverse pricking iron. So same pricking iron for the inside and the outside. And I'm also not using any technique to align the holes up. So what I teach in the course is a technique that allows you to keep consistent stitches on the inside and the outside, going right into the corners. We don't have a smaller pricking iron used in the corners. It goes in there and then out. There's more stitches on the outside than the inside, but you can't tell. So the idea of this is it gives it a very, very neat corner, and the stitches are neatly angled going into and out of the corner. And this technique also allows you to get those fine angles on the inside and the outside, even though we're not actually using a cast, which is an interesting feature of this technique. So you're getting beautiful angles on the bag on every which way you look at it. You've always got that decorative angle, that telltale sign that this is a hand-stitched, custom-made piece. So that is some of the design features and techniques discussed in the course on how to create your very own luxury handbag, the Turenne luxury handbag. Of course, when you make it, you can call it whatever you like. So it's yours to name. In the course itself, there are dozens of different techniques, tips, and guidance on how to get a beautiful finish on your bag. So if you want to make your very own bag, or you want to learn some of these techniques to transfer onto other projects, which is absolutely fine, it's definitely recommended, because some of these transfer onto wallets, watch straps, cases, you name it. These skills can be transferred absolutely anywhere to make whatever project you want. But if you want to learn how to make this bag and learn these skills, click the description below to find out more. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.